Welcome back. Now we shall turn our attention to Article 14, which talks about the examination of documents. When documents are presented to the nominated bank or an issuing bank, the documents will have to be examined under Article 14. The confirming bank also examines documents subject to the guidance available on Article 14 as to how the documents shall be examined for compliance with the terms and conditions of the credit or compliance with the UCP. And the practice that they follow is the standard banking practice or the international bankers in trade finance field used to do on a day in and a day out basis. Banks have to review the documents presented. Which bank? The nominated bank, the issuing bank, the confirming bank. They have to review the documents presented. What they review for? They have to see whether they appear to be compliant. How they will be compliant? Compliant on their face. So banks will look at only the documents presented. Bank will not take cognizance of any information available anywhere else in the world. Suppose you receive a shipping documents to be examined under document credit. It may be billions and trillions of dollars worth of documents you are examining. And at the same time, somebody tells you there is a news that a particular ship, marine vessel ABC, had sunk in the sea just yesterday. Now you find that the transport document talks about a marine vessel ABC carrying these goods, and you have a news said by somebody that marine vessel ABC was sunk in the sea just yesterday, and today firefighters are trying to go and find out what happened to the ship. That information that the ship has sunk will have no impact on your examination of documents because you go by the documents that has been presented. Your documents say goods ABC have been loaded on board vessel ABC or XYZ, and this vessel had set float, and this BL has been issued by a carrier for on behalf of or signed for on behalf of by the agents. So the information available outside the document will not have any cognizance or any consequence on the examination of the documents by the bank. Bank goes only by the document and not have what happened outside the document. This should be based on the documents presented and not on any other document. It should appear on their face. Face does not mean the front or the back part, but normally the acceptance or the agreement is that face is meant to the part in which the data required by the credit has been filled up by any party. For example, in a bill of lading, you will have one page full of fine print and you will have another page where there will be boxes to be filled, and such spaces will be blank spaces will be filled by a particular party to give life to the transport document in compliant with the requirements of the credit. So the phase is the part where the data required by the credit has been filled up by an agency, a carrier or somebody and signed. And that may not be page 1, that may not be page 2, but that is called the phase where data required by the credit has been imprinted to be examined. So that's what it is. We will go only by the documents presented and it has to appear to be compliant. We will not do a forensic check, and this is the purpose of reviewing of the documents. Now this review is independent of the sale contract or any other contract. Any other contract means you will not go into the insurance contract, you will check only the insurance document. You will not go into the charter party contract, you will check only the charter party bill of lading. You will not check the sales contract, but you will check the terms and conditions given in the credit. So that is what it says when you are checking independently, when you are examining the documents independent of the sale or other contract. And it is also independent of the beneficiary's relationship with the applicant. The beneficiary and applicant would have agreed that whatever be the discrepancy, we will accept the shipment, we will accept the presentation, and we will pay. That relationship, that agreement is totally independent of the presentation of the credit, and the presentation of the credit will have to be satisfactory to the banks involved, the nominated bank, the issuing bank, and the confirming bank as applicable. It is also independent of the goods, services, or performance. The goods would have been already delivered to the party. Goods would have been already sold by the buyer in the market. The buyer would have already have the money ready for payment for the goods. It is not of any consequence to the examiner of documents. And it is not based on the knowledge gained from other sources. As we saw, if there is a news report that something happened to the ship, we don't care. If there is a news report that says particular goods or particular services is not acceptable for a particular reason, as a banks we need not care, because we have seen bank deal only in the document submitted, and the examination is based on the document submitted and not on any other sources. Banks, when they receive a presentation, will have to confirm the due date to the presenter, or they have to pay. They have to pay if it is available by sight. If it is acceptance, they have to accept and say when they will pay. If it is deferred payment undertaking, they have to incur a deferred payment undertaking and say when it is a maturity date. If it is negotiable, they have to say they are agreeing to advance funds and tell them when they will advance the funds actually. It can be any date on or before the payment is due to be reimbursed to the nominated bank by the issuing bank. So if the documents are presented, the presenter has to be informed when is the maturity date or due date of the documents. The party who is examining the documents, maybe the nominated bank, maybe the issuing bank, maybe the confirming bank, will have to give notice of refusal to the presenter. Maybe presenter could be the beneficiary, presenter could be any other bank, presenter could be the nominated bank. Will have to give notice of refusal to presenter if documents are rejected. If they are rejected for the reason it is non-compliant. If the documents are non-conforming, it has to be rejected. The document checking records has to be properly annotated as to what were the discrepancies, when and how it was identified and agreed upon, and what has been informed to whom, on which date, what refusal has been sent, and how it has been sent. This information is important because if a bank fails to act as per the Article 16, the bank is precluded from claiming documents were not discrepant, and bank will have to honor the transaction. The refusal has to be fast and prompt. It means it has to be sent by telecommunication, an authenticated telecommunication, and immediately when they find it discrepant, in any case not later than 5 banking days after the date of presentation. Any bank will have 5 banking days after the date of presentation to examine the documents and satisfy itself whether it is complying or not. If it finds it is not conforming to the requirements of the DC and UCP, then they have to refuse. That refusal has to be within that 5 days, and it has to be by authenticated telecommunication. It can be by phone also, but then you will have no proof whether you have called. It has to be a recorded phone. You should have a recording kept ready, and then every party should know that you have a recording so that they will not bluff around and then create problems for you. All those things are required. It has to be explicit. When you say you are refusing, you say that you are not willing to honor. You are saying you are refusing the documents. You have to say you reject the presentation. You have to say that you refuse the drawing. It has to be explicit. It has to be explicit also with respect to what are the discrepancies for which you are refusing. So you have to list out all the discrepancies. You cannot go back and piecemeal. You have to list out all the discrepancies. You have to say you are refusing because of these discrepancies, and you have to say the documents are kept at their disposal, or whether you are returning it, or whether you are handling as per the previously given instructions on a discrepant document, or you have to say you have to approach the applicant and waiting for their waiver as demanded by the presenter. So the disposal can be of 4 different methods, and you have to say what you are doing. If you had given a refusal notice, and if you say the disposal is that you are holding documents pending the presenter's instruction or handling as per previous instruction, then you can also return the documents to the presenter. But if you are saying you are awaiting applicant's waiver, then you may not be able to return the documents. You will be holding till the waiver comes back. Or if the previously given instruction is that hold until we give you further instructions, then you have to hold the documents. Issuing bank must not be advised of the discrepancies by the nominated bank unless and until the beneficiary wants you to do so. Issuing bank must not be advised of the discrepancies by the nominated bank until and unless the beneficiary authorizes them to do so. Why? Because the beneficiary may be able to correct them or rectify them. And if it is rectified or corrected, and then when a corrected document goes to the issuing bank may look at the old discrepancy and raise those same discrepancies and then create further confusion. Also, there may be a situation when the amendment will the beneficiary will ask the nominated bank to go back to the issuing bank asking for amendments. In such a case, issuing bank will have to go back to the applicant. Applicant will have to come back fast saying whether such amendments are possible, if yes, whether they are agreeing for such amendments, and then they have to give instructions to the issuing bank. Issuing bank will have to issue such instructions to the nominated bank, and then the presentation might become compliant based on those amendments. A message can also be sent out to the issuing bank saying documents are discrepant. Please permit us to pay or honor in spite of the discrepancies. Message may be sent out to the issuing bank by the confirming bank or the nominated bank asking for acceptance to take up the discrepant documents, asking for their approval for waiver of the discrepancies. It is also possible that the nominated bank is willing to honor or negotiate against beneficiaries' indemnity. This is something outside the UCP or outside the standard structure, and if they do it, they don't get any additional benefit or support from any other party. They are doing it for their own sake to safeguard their relationship with the beneficiary, and this will be always with recourse, and issuing bank or any other party is nowhere bound by this particular indemnity. And then the nominated bank will have to dispatch the documents to the issuing bank for settlement. The nominated bank will have to dispatch the documents to the issuing bank for settlement. A nominated bank that receives the document, examines, and forwards, it does not automatically become a honor. It does not automatically become obligated to pay. It does not mean that the issuing bank will in any case reimburse the nominated bank on due date. The reimbursement to the nominated bank is guaranteed if and only if they have honored. Honor means either they have to accept the drafts, or they have to incur a deferred payment undertaking, or they have to negotiate by agreeing to advance funds honor before the due date. This is what honor is. And nominated bank has to will honor in a fashion. The words used by ICC is to the extent expressly agreed and so communicated to the beneficiary. So there has to be an express agreement and it has to be communicated to the beneficiary. Only then that will be considered as a honor. Documents could be returned for correction by the nominated bank to the beneficiary. Then only documents which have discrepancy will have to be returned, because you need not examine the other documents once again. And these represented documents will have to be re-examined, and there could be additional discrepancies. If there are fresh discrepancies, then those have to be rectified. Sometimes one of the discrepancy could be late presentation, then or they'll see expiry. In such cases, we have a bigger problem on hand than what we had earlier. So the rectification of the discrepancy has to be very prompt and fast. Now, when you send a message saying allow us to take up the document notwithstanding a stated discrepancies, then the issuing bank's message will say what discrepancies are being accepted. Sometimes they give a blanket saying discrepancy stated in your message is accepted. In such a case, the presentation schedule of the nominated bank has to say that we have taken up the documents subject to your waiver of the listed discrepancies 1, 2, 3 as per your message dated ABC. Now, until honor or negotiation occurs, until the documents are accepted or deferred payment undertaking has been incurred or under the side payment has been made, the documents belong to the beneficiary. So every party will have to wait for the instructions from the beneficiary if something contrary has to be acted upon. The documents are held at the risk of the beneficiary for on behalf of the beneficiary in trust by the other parties, and it has to be acted as per the instructions of the beneficiary. Every presentation by the beneficiary to the issuing bank, nominated bank, as well as the presentation by the nominated bank of the discrepant documents, irrespective of whether it has been accepted by the issuing bank or not, has to be presented to the issuing bank saying it is subject to UCP. Because if you notify a discrepancy and then if you submit those documents, and if you say these are for your collection or we are sending the discrepant documents for collection because UCP is no more supporting non-compliant documents, you should say it is subject to UCP to compel them to check and refuse. If you do not draw the UCP's attention to the presentation schedule, it may get checked under URC, and accordingly the protection may not be available. So thanks for watching this video. We shall meet again in another part shortly.